This episode of Infinite Scroll is brought to you by BRITA. From water talk to the emotional support water bottle, Gen Z and millennials have developed an obsession with water and staying hydrated. With Brita's water filter jugs, you can enjoy pure and fresh tasting filtered water straight from any tap. By ditching single-use plastic bottles, you'll be doing your bit for the planet and drinking water that tastes amazing. Brita doesn't just filter water, it filters out the guilt of plastic waste. Thank you to Brita for supporting the pod, helping us keep our deep dives going, and of course, keeping us hydrated. At the end of June, a video began circulating from content creator Tanner Martin, but it wasn't a regular video. For years prior, Tanner had been documenting his experience fighting colon cancer. But this video began with a line no one was quite ready for.
Hey, it's me, Tanner. If you're watching this, I am dead.
In the video, Tanner continued by speaking directly to his wife, Shay, reflecting on his journey and thanking the community he had built. He also shared how viewers could continue to support his family. Soon came an outpouring of support from his followers. The video has since been viewed over 15 million times on TikTok and 5.8 million times on Reels. Tanner's final post left a clear and impactful legacy online, one that he also sought to shape himself. And he's not the only one. Other iconic creators who have passed away, like Technoblade, have also left behind versions of themselves online. Their videos, captions, and final words became part of their story. Legacy is a lofty concept, and one that most of us will grapple with at some point in our lives. But the way we curate our legacy is changing. It's no longer limited to the small circle of people we know and interact with in real life. It's not just preserved in conversations and connections with friends or memories shared with family. There is now a digital version of us that exists and lives on. And while that might feel unsettling, the digital world has fundamentally transformed how we perceive and engage with death. Some commentators have even gone so far as to describe the modern world as post-mortal. This is an exploration into digital footprints and how, through performance, storytelling, and self-curation, we're all creating digital legacies for ourselves, whether we realize it or not. From Centennial World, I'm Lauren Meisner, and this is Infinite Scroll, a podcast about internet culture, the creator economy, and how social media is shaping Gen Z. Welcome back to Infinite Scroll, everyone. You might notice that I have a bit of a different setup today. I'm trying a different microphone. My teleprompter wasn't working, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we just switch all of this up and see if the vibes are a little bit easier, a little bit better. I struggle so much with the technology around our teleprompter and these deep dives. So I was like, why don't I just do something different? So we'll see how this goes. The handheld vibe, she kind of feels a bit more casual. Anyways, before I get into it, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Please also sign up to our newsletter, which for now is also called Infinite Scroll. We're going to be having a rebrand very soon. For now, we round up the 5 biggest think pieces on the internet that week every single Friday, but that will soon be changing. It will be very exciting, so please subscribe. So earlier this year, we did a deep dive into the phenomenon of parasocial grief, attempting to answer questions around why we feel genuine sadness when a public figure dies and whether this grief is even valid. Through this episode, we explored how social media capitalizes on the grief economy, as well as how social media users perform and police grief online. After speaking to 2 experts in this field, it became clear that parasocial grief is a real and powerful feeling, one that is unfortunately undermined. While we did come to some conclusions, this episode posed more questions than it answered. Having said that, we wanted to examine this relationship between the digital space and death more closely, which is what brings us to today's episode about digital legacies. Now, the conversation around parasocial grief and dying online brings up questions like, what happens to the social media profiles of someone who has passed, and how do platforms manage this? We touched on this in our previous deep dive, noting how platforms like Facebook and Instagram have the ability to memorialize profiles of people who have passed away. In this instance, our online profile becomes part of our legacy. It is something that can live separately to us and even beyond us. And that's what we want to explore today. Not necessarily what happens to our profiles after we die, but why that matters to us. and what that says about how creators and the average social media users live online today. Before we discuss the specifics of legacy in the digital space, it is worth defining what legacy means and exploring why it's important to us. First and foremost, legacy is quite a broad concept. According to psychological scholarship, legacy is typically understood as curating a post-mortem reputation, or in other words, a specific way to be remembered after you die. It should be noted, though, that legacy doesn't have to be exclusively after death. If you take a moment to think about various public figures, like athletes or musicians, many have managed to leave a legacy through achievements well before they pass. This is also something that could apply to social media creators, but more on this later. People can leave different kinds of legacies, whether biological, material, or values-driven. Biological legacy may include having children or even being an organ donor. Material legacy is all about possessions and heirlooms. Lastly, a values-driven legacy may refer to passing on personal beliefs, often extending to cultural and societal norms and experiences. Of course, not every single type of legacy applies to the digital space. But we could argue that material legacy in this context may refer to accounts and profiles. Meanwhile, a legacy of values could relate to the messaging that a creator or public figure shares on their platforms. Regardless of the type of legacy someone may leave behind, the commitment and interest in curating one seems to exist across the board. This may simply be a matter of human nature, but there are a couple of theories within existing psychological literature that attempt to explain why this happens. The first one stems from our interest in building community and connection through reputation and social standing. Throughout our lives, we are constantly told to look out for our reputation, both on and offline. Just think about the fear-mongering that went on when millennials were first entering the workforce. They were constantly told to put their social media profiles on private, working under the assumption that an employer wouldn't want to hire someone who may have shared pictures from a night out. From a young age, we are all taught that how people see us matters. A good reputation means that you are seen as trustworthy, reliable, and likable, and that can open doors, build relationships, and lead to new opportunities. On the flip side, a bad reputation can shut those same doors, at least in theory, if you're not a white man. So it makes sense that we care about how we are remembered, whether that's after we leave a job, move away from a community, or even after we die. It's basically an extension of everything we've been taught to care about. As academics Brat Wagner, Jesse M. Baring, and Jameen Haberstadt put it, quote, "Given that legacy-driven motives constitute essentially one's permanent idealized reputation, the impetus to leave such a lasting personal impact may be a reflection of basic human social drives for in-group validation and social approval, even after death." Another reason explaining our interest in legacy is our anxiety around death. Historically, we may have turned to religion as a way to mitigate this discomfort. But as the world becomes increasingly secular, religious beliefs in the afterlife and the experience after death become less convincing for some. In the same article, the academics point to the concept of symbolic immortality as a way to offset such feelings. As they write, quote, "Attempts to preserve the self through absorption into one's ambient culture are common. Such efforts give one a sense of symbolic immortality and may include creating works of cultural value and social impact, or aligning oneself with the values of a delineated group that will outlive the self." So at its core, doing something that matters, or at least feels like it matters, becomes a way to cope with the finality of death. And it's another major reason why legacy is something that people think about. While all of these are important factors when we talk about legacy, there's another piece that feels especially relevant in the digital world. And that's the idea of legacy as narrative. The link between narrative and identity has been explored for decades in both psychology and philosophy. While there are different theories about how we use narratives in our lives, one thing is clear: storytelling is innate to human nature. It's how we make sense of the world and its challenges. It indicates a sense of progress, gives us some control over how we're perceived, and lets us pass on knowledge in a way that feels familiar. As the authors put it, quote, "Self-narratives allow us to perceive ostensibly meaningful, even if illusory, transformations of characters and unraveling plots, providing a feeling of progress, and as a consequence, teleological purpose through the hope of an eventual just and climactic ending. In that sense, legacy can be thought of as the final chapter or the conclusion to a person's story. What's interesting is that social media users have kind of embraced this idea and the importance of narrative, whether consciously or not. You see it in the rise of storytime content, but maybe even more so in the whole main character syndrome phenomenon. The idea posits that you are the main character, and everyone else in your life is an NPC. It encourages people to romanticize their life and live as if they are the protagonist in a film. This approach largely originated on TikTok and became a popular coping mechanism to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, not everyone buys in to main character syndrome, but almost everyone is pushing out some kind of self-narrative online. Whether it's a curated Instagram feed, the TikTok niche you fall into, or even just choosing what not to post, we are all performing a version of ourselves. We are all in some way self-producing and curating a digital legacy in the process. In this context, the version of ourselves we present online can be seen as an archive of sorts. Our posts tell a story about who we are, what we value, and what we want to be remembered for, even if it isn't always something you are actively thinking about. But this idea of performance and how we achieve it is being explored more deeply by creators and commentators. One example is pop culture analyst and podcaster What Zara Loves. In a TikTok video recently, she discussed how posts on social media can be viewed and understood as artifacts, where for our sake, these artifacts can serve as building blocks of a digital legacy. She begins by referencing dramaturgical theory, which is a sociological theory likening social interaction to theater. Through this lens, individuals create specific versions of themselves to influence how others perceive them and manage their identity. There is a split here between the front stage and the backstage. The former is how we present our public persona, while the latter is how we exist when there is no one to perform for. Ultimately, it's a powerful way to think about how we manage our identity and public impression. Zara, in her video, notes that she had always thought that posting on social media was part of the front stage. But she has since started to view posts online not necessarily as an active performance, but rather as artifacts and exhibitions of previous performances. Of course, Zara is correct. No one does post their backstage. Even as social media has become more casual, it continues to be performative. It should be noted that this isn't necessarily bad. From everything we've discussed at the beginning of the episode, it's clear that this preoccupation with reputation and how we are perceived is part of our society and human nature. The true problem is that users don't fully understand the extent of this performance. A couple of years ago, for example, there was a lot of discourse online about the rise of photo dumps on Instagram. People were celebrating. It was finally the end of the perfectly curated, polished, and highly edited culture on Instagram. Instead of brightly colored brunch photos in front of the most perfect sunset on the grid, the photo dump was filled with casual landscape pictures and unedited selfies. They almost seemed like they were just thrown together. But often, they were posted after much thought and to curate a specific vibe. This approach to social media trickled down from creators and celebrities to the masses, where everyone was creating their digital legacy. One photo dump, or should we say one artifact, at a time. This brings us to another interesting point. While our fascination with legacy isn't new, the ability to publicly curate it is. Like we've established, platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube allow users to self-produce and broadcast a version of themselves that can easily outlive their offline reality. Before social media, the average person had limited control over how they were remembered on a grand scale. Building a legacy was limited to their family, their workplace, or their local community. But now, anyone with a social media profile can shape their identity and legacy in real time, for an audience of strangers. This is, of course, what celebrities have been doing for as long as we can remember. And Beyoncé is one really interesting and current example of how artists grapple with their legacy, both online and offline. While she is still actively touring and releasing music, it is clear she is focused on what she wants her career to represent. Her 3-act album project, 2 of which have been released so far, Renaissance and Cowboy Carter, is littered with imagery and commentary about legacy. On the Cowboy Carter tour, for instance, there is one montage that includes clips from Beyoncé's entire career so far. This isn't even to mention how her daughter, Blue Ivy, who dances throughout the show, is introduced as the heir to the throne before one of the solo performances. Take one of Cowboy Carter's singles as another example. The song 16 Carriages contains reflections on the sacrifices Beyoncé has made throughout her career, all of which contribute to her legacy. With more and more nods to Beyoncé's long-term influence, fans are convinced that after Act 3, she will be retiring. Now, not every public figure is thinking about legacy this intentionally, especially when they're still active in their field. But Beyoncé's focus on it probably comes down to a few things. She's had a once-in-a-generation career. She's reshaped the industry through performance, production quality, pure excellence, and professionalism. She has also used her platform to celebrate and uplift Black culture and Black women in ways that weren't always possible for the artists who came before her. On top of this, as a Black woman, she's had to work even harder to manage the public narrative about her and, by extension, her legacy. She also stands out as one of the few current mainstream artists who has maintained cultural and commercial relevance across more than 3 decades, from her early years in Destiny's Child to her current solo career. With that kind of longevity, it's unsurprising that she would be actively thinking about her legacy, how it's shaped and remembered. While Beyoncé is definitely navigating legacy in her own way, she is far from the only celebrity to curate their legacy publicly. From greatest hits albums to farewell tours to memoirs, legacy has always been part of a celebrity's career. But obviously, all of this pertains to Hollywood and mainstream entertainment. In the creator economy, the conversation might look a little different. That brings us to one key question. Do content creators have the same relationship with legacy as celebrities do? Because the creator economy is such a nascent industry, it might be too early to say anything for sure. But there are a few arguments we can make here. On a fundamental level, creators would likely have a similar relationship and interest in legacy, simply because they're public figures. They build their audience and construct a character or public identity that lasts beyond their online career. And when creators do leave the space, whether to go completely offline or to move into forms of more traditional entertainment, many do final videos or goodbye posts. Last year, for example, Matt Pat posted a video titled Goodbye Internet before stepping back from hosting Game Theory. It's also worth doubling down on the fact that the infrastructure around legacy building for creators is still very new. Unlike mainstream celebrities, who often have entire teams or a variety of predecessors to draw inspiration from when considering their brand and legacy, most creators are navigating this process on their own. In other words, the creator economy does not yet have the longevity of traditional entertainment. So it's difficult to see how digital legacy is interpreted and how it holds up in the long term. On top of this, considering how fickle content creation can be and how fast internet culture moves, it can be difficult to effectively curate a legacy when it's the algorithm, platform, or political culture in a specific moment in time that decides what cuts through. So while influencers might want to curate a legacy, they may not have the same control to do so in a lasting way. And that's not even getting into the nature of the medium itself. Much of a content creator's legacy is tied to digital platforms. And while we often say everything online lives forever, that's not actually guaranteed. Platforms rise and fall, data can be lost, and the ways we access and preserve information are constantly shifting, especially now, as we enter the era of AI. It's difficult to predict what a digital legacy will even look like in years to come. Yes, there are tools that allow us to memorialize profiles, but there's no promise we'll be able to access them long term. Just look at what happened with MySpace. A whole generation of early internet culture was essentially wiped when the platform lost most of its data. All in all, the conversation around legacy and what it means to curate one in the digital age is both interesting and definitely still evolving, especially when you consider just how much social media has become a part of our everyday life. Having said that, Gen Z users are not afraid to poke fun at what may be considered a serious topic. Over the past few years, this demographic has not shied away from making light of their digital legacies and the prospect of leaving an online presence behind. There are a couple of trends that show just how unserious Gen Z is about this. In 2022, for example, one trend saw users listing the rules of their own funerals, from insisting guests bring photo evidence of their friendship to gatekeep the event, to asking attendees to show up in glam. More recently, when the wedding lineup trend took over TikTok, some made funeral lineups instead. Others have gone as far as creating Spotify legacy playlists, including YouTuber Mike's Mike, who created his own soundtrack to be remembered by. With that being said, we actually chatted with Mike to hear his thoughts on curating a digital legacy as a creator and why he thinks Gen Z is preoccupied by their legacy. So, welcome, Mike, to Infinite Scroll.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you. I've literally been following you on YouTube for years. So for me, this is like serendipitous.
Oh, hell yeah. Are we talking like the post-2020 era, the post-2023 era? Like, what are we talking?
Oh, no. Like, I'm going to say post 2020, like years.
Wow. Yeah, I feel lucky because I can try a whole bunch of different things. I feel like over that last 5 years, I've sort of pivoted into like long form content, also doing stuff on other platforms and all that. So yeah, it's been really fun.
All right. Well, here we are today to talk about digital legacies and kind of what we leave behind online. Obviously, you are a digital culture expert, but for anyone who doesn't, but for anyone who doesn't know your lore, can you give us a quick rundown on who you are, what you do?
Okay, so post YouTube videos talking about pop culture. And when I say pop culture, I mean like movies, TV shows, sometimes music as well. And then I also post on the other platforms, you know, TikTok, Instagram. And then I call myself somewhat of a Spotify playlist connoisseur. So if you knew my YouTube stuff after 2020, you would know my Glee video, which has my Spotify playlist of my Glee favorite songs. It's hit after hit after hit. And the girls like, get it. So yeah, just like that intersection of like 2000s pop culture, sometimes a little bit after that, but that's sort of, I would say 2004 to 2014 is like my favorite area of pop culture. So,
okay, I love that. Would you call yourself like a video essayist?
When I think of video essayists, like Jenny Nicholson, she's just like a step above me. So I say that I'm like a step below that, whatever you call that level of silliness that's below like serious video essayists. So yeah.
Okay, I feel like you're not giving yourself enough credit, but sure, we'll go with it.
I mean, being silly is important. So yeah.
And I love that you don't take it so seriously. It's very fun. So let's just get right into it. What for you does the kind of idea or concept of digital legacy mean?
So it's sort of like what you're leaving on the internet. I think about it as, so actually, while I was getting ready for this meeting, I was listening to my playlist again through, and I had some thoughts, which are for Gen Z, you know, we're sort of living, me saying that I'm Gen Z, even though I'm like 1 year out of the bracket, but I'm still saying I'm Gen Z. Let's just go with that. We're sort of growing up with the internet, and it's so intrinsically linked with whatever we're doing, whatever we're presenting ourselves as. Whereas if I think about my mum, she would have had like a photo album of memories and being like, this is what I did at this time, blah, 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 blah. And you can like pull it out and show people. Or like maybe had a CD where she'd burnt her favorite songs onto. Whereas like now, young people are presenting their lives on Instagram. They're making their Spotify legacy playlists. It's sort of like, these are parts of my story that I'm sharing with everyone else via these avenues. That's sort of how I see it. And it makes sense to me that Gen Z would be the one that's sort of spearheading this like digital legacy sort of trend.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that there's an element of performance that goes into kind of what we're leaving behind or what we're posting and then obviously leaving behind as a result?
I saw a really interesting TikTok yesterday, and I might be butchering the exact words, but it was something like, when people are posting on, for example, Instagram, they're not posting their current performance, they're posting highlights of their past performances. So it's like it's still performing, but in a way that they're showing these are things that I did that I like and I want to share with people. So I think even if we're looking at it through that lens of like it's performative, I think there's still a very human element of being like, I did this and it was great and I want to show other people. It's like when people go to Paris and they take a picture of the Eiffel Tower and they post it. It's like how many thousands, millions of pictures of the Eiffel Tower are there? But it's like, but I took this one and I want people to see it. So it's like memories and what's part of them being shown to other people.
We did a bigger podcast episode on kind of like death and dying and what happens to your
Mm.
digital footprint once you pass on and what the
Hmm.
platforms do with it and all of that. And do you find that this is something that Gen Z is thinking about more now? Is that in any of the research or conversations even that you've had?
It sort of links back to what I was saying, where it just feels like it's part of what we do now, to be like collating and collecting these pieces of us and sharing them with other people. What happens later on, it almost doesn't matter because it's like we're collating them as we go. So it's like, I don't know what could happen tomorrow. Whereas like my posts and all my things I've created online are still going to be there and people are still going to see them. So it's sort of like you're thinking about it as you go. Like I think there's an element of it for sure, but it's also, it doesn't have to be that serious. Like you just like collect some of your favorite things and share. Like my Spotify plays, for example, like some of those songs, like every song on there is linked to a specific memory that I have, but some of them are super serious. Some of them are just fun. And it's fun to just like have those all in one place together. So it's like, how many people would have, you know, Suddenly I See by KT Tunstall on their favorite songs playlist? Probably a lot. But how many of those people would also have Till the World Ends remix by Kesha on there? It's like the context of it in the one sort of area being like, this is my thing, and sharing it is sort of like the kicker.
And I think like there is more nuance to just what we're posting in general. You know, people always love
Hmm.
to talk about like it's a highlight reel and like here's like the reality behind this photo that I took or whatever. But honestly, like multiple things can exist at the same time. Like
Totally.
I feel like yeah, I might have been having a really bad I don't know, mental health day when I took this photo, but like this moment represents also like a bright spot in my day or whatever. And like multiple things
Absolutely.
happen at once. But how
Hmm.
do you think like the perception, the like real time perception, how do you think that's shaping how people are posting or curating?
You know, celebrities that I follow and their Instagram presence. It feels much more curated than, say, someone that I worked with 6 or 7 years ago. But the person I'm working with 6 or 7 years ago is still thinking about what they're posting and, you know, updating people on their lives through what they're posting and what they're sharing and that kind of thing. I actually love it when people share songs to their stories. And I'm like, so why are you sharing that? Like, what's the story behind that particular share? It's like they're keeping people updated on their lives. So I think that's how I would sort of look at it. Like, yes, it's curated and it's like specific messaging, but I don't think it's as manufactured as a celebrity. Like, if you think about a celebrity that doesn't even have access to their social media and they're getting someone else to post things for them, it's all for optics.
Mhm.
Whereas, like, I think for everyday people, it's less a performance, more so a specific targeted sharing. And I think there's like a difference there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I actually always say like the dream would to be like so famous that you actually don't have to think about your social media presence like at all. Not that it's like necessarily
Mm.
done for you, but the fact that
Hmm.
like when you see celebrities and they have like the worst, I don't know, like social media ever and they you can tell that they don't care about it and I'm like the dream that you don't have to think about
Yeah.
this.
I feel like for me, there's two dreams. First one is that you said. Second one is just being so good at it that it's just like off the cuff, like Dua Lipa. Dua
Yeah.
Lipa's social media presence, and she's like posting those photo dumps. I'm like, you're so good at this.
Yeah. Or like food photos. Like I can't take a food
Mm.
pic like for the life of me. And
I
every
honestly
time
gave up.
no, me too. Every time I see like a moody, vibey, I'm like, how did you curate that? How did you take that picture and then curate that dump? Like I was at that restaurant last week and it didn't look like that. Like, how
Yeah.
did you do
Yeah.
that?
Exactly. I just gave up on the photo stuff. I'm like, all right, let me stick to posting funny stuff, sharing songs and movie reviews. Let's keep it at that because the photos of the food are not giving. And people are like, what is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, on the topic of social media and different platforms, which
Hmm.
platforms do you think actually kind of do the best job of capturing someone's digital legacy?
Instagram and Spotify in terms of the playlisting. Instagram, because like you're sharing those, it can be highlights, it can be just like key moments from your life. So that's the best way to sort of build that online presence slash legacy. Whereas, like, if I think about my presence on TikTok, it's just like silly everyday posting. It like doesn't really mean much about me as a person. YouTube's
Mhm.
like linked to my work. So if I was to share my catalog of work on YouTube, it'd be like, this is what I did for work and things that I'm interested in. But if I'm sharing my Instagram, then it's like these are things that I enjoy doing. These are things that were like linked to my story. So, for example, in 2020, I went to Japan with my cousins and I posted about that. And I also added the song of the trip from that to my legacy playlist on Spotify because I don't know about you, but like songs for trips, like it just goes together. Like every trip that I go
Hmm.
on, there is a song. And whenever I hear that song, I think about that trip. Or like
Yeah.
whenever I go to that place, I think about that song.
Yeah. Yeah. Music
Um,
is so linked with like memory, isn't it?
yeah, totally. That's why it's like if I listen to this legacy playlist through, it's like the memories are popping back in and it's just so fun to remember. It's like when you smell something and it's like, oh, I remember that smell from when I smelled it in Paris in 2015. It's like it just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it takes you back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I agree with that. And I think part of it is because Instagram and YouTube, or sorry, TikTok and YouTube are more like entertainment platforms,
totally.
whereas Instagram is not so much about like entertaining people. Therefore, it's not that you become more authentic on Instagram, but like you said, it's more of a documentation of like your everyday of like who you are as a person. And then with
Yeah,
Spotify, same thing where it's not about like curating playlists and being present on the platform isn't about entertaining anyone else. So it's more
totally.
authentic to who you are.
Totally. And I also think the way the platforms are structured lends itself to that. If you're scrolling on someone's TikTok, it's kind of hard to see what they were doing a year ago. If they're posting a lot, if they haven't pinned it to the top of the profile, it's hard to see chronologically like what's happening. Whereas
Hmm.
on Instagram, you go to someone's profile, it's pretty easy to see what happened when, and they've got their highlights and stuff like that up the top, like story highlights. And then if you go to someone's Spotify profile, they've got their playlist. It says when the playlist was made, when the songs were added. You can see the like general vibe. So
Hmm.
it feels more authentic because it's like easy to work out when things happened.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like the user experience is much better in
Yeah,
some ways.
totally. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And if I know you said that you don't consider yourself a video essayist, but if you had to pick
Hmm.
one of your video essays or just videos, I guess, to
Hmm.
represent your digital legacy, which one would it be and why?
Great question. Also, me not being a video essayist, I feel like the one video essay that I would say was a video essay was about Lady Gaga's album, Art Pop,
Mm.
and it got like immediately demonetized. So in my head, I'm like, I don't even consider that a video essay either.
Wait, why did it get demonetized for like music?
It was because I was like talking through the lyrics, and some of the lyrics she has like
Oh
pretty
my
like
God.
risque like terms and stuff, and they
Yeah.
demonetized it for that. But I would say it would have to be my Pretty Little Liars recap series because that sort of like
Mm.
changed
Hmm.
everything for me. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't consider that a video essay, but I would consider it like a moment in long form content, especially for me, and I guess for
Hmm.
other people as well. But yeah, that nearly at 10 million views.
Wow. What a slay. Congrats.
What a slay! Exactly. Yeah,
Oh my God,
crazy.
I love
So,
that. Okay,
yeah.
well, before I let you go, can you just share a little bit about like what you have coming up or like what your future
Mhm.
plans are for your channel, for your career? I'm just so interested to hear.
Okay, so I behind the scenes, I mean I talk about this a little bit on YouTube, but I'm one of those people that doesn't like to say too much about what's happening until it happens because I
Hmm.
hate being disappointed. But I'm writing scripts outside of YouTube, like
Ooh.
screenplays and that kind of thing for film. So I'm trying to get some of those off the ground now. There's like a heist and a comedy.
Oh my
Um,
God.
And then on YouTube, I'm finishing off my Gossip Girl and Lost series, and I'm doing
Hmm.
some like smaller stuff about Sex in the City, which I'm loving. Oh my God, it's so good. And I can't
Yeah,
believe I
yeah.
was so late to that. I'm like watching this stuff and I'm like, wow, this was so good. Everyone's replying like, yeah, I watched this like 25 years ago.
Literally.
I've got one more recap series that I've got planned, and
Mm.
it involves a group of women living on a street.
Honest. Oh, Desperate Housewives, maybe. Maybe. My favorite.
Maybe.
Desperate Housewives is literally my favorite show. I watched it in the second lockdown here in Sydney. It was like the thing I did. It would be like 2 p.m. every day. And I'd be like, can I just finish work now to just binge Desperate Housewives? Because I have nothing else to do because we were in lockdown.
It,
And it's so iconic.
it is just peak 2000s TV, 25 episodes per season. It's like
Yeah.
grown up Pretty Little Liars, to be honest. So it feels like a
Yes.
natural progression. So
Oh, it's so good. I'm so excited for that. Maybe if that's what
yes.
it is.
Oh well, I mean, I can't confirm or deny, of course. Just the rumors. The rumors are flying around.
I
So
love it.
yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you.
Overall, it's clear that the digital world has transformed not just how we live, but also how we remember the world around us. It has blurred the lines between presence and absence, and even between life and death. And while this is undoubtedly a heavy topic, we're all trying to figure out what it means to shape a reputation and build a legacy in a world where our online presence can last longer than our offline one. Infinite Scroll is a podcast produced, presented, and co-written by me, Lauren Meisner, for Centennial World. This episode was researched and co-written by Annabelle Ben-David. Thank you so much for listening. I love you guys, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.